Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10. And on the horizon, yet another interest rate rise. I think it's in August, early August. We've got one coming up. I think it's the 2nd of August. Next MPC, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England, meet and discuss interest rates. And they set interest rates based on inflation. And inflation is at a record high, as many of you will know, many of you are experiencing. It's a bit of a shock, isn't it? And interest rates take a long time to filter through to the economy. And therefore, when inflation goes up and the Bank of England react to try and counter it, it takes a long time for those measures to filter through to the economy, as much as 2 years. And that's because many people have fixed rate mortgages, and therefore it doesn't affect them immediately. Sometimes they're fixed for 2 years or more. Sometimes they're fixed for a year. But you can see how it's not the same for all of us. Some people won't be concerned about interest rates going up. In fact, their savings do better when interest rates are higher. But overall, most of us will be concerned about rising interest rates. And certainly it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, that we've got this property market that is nuts on the one hand, and on the other hand, we've got affordability being squeezed from all sides, from inflation generally right through to the actual mortgage costs per month. So this is a real squeeze. What can you do to prepare yourself? First of all, what I would say is this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. But what I can say is this. If you've got a mortgage and you're on a variable interest rate, you might want to speak to your lender about what fixes are available. My suspicion is that at the next MPC meeting, which, by the way, is not run by the government, it's by an independent committee of the Bank of England, that was separated some time ago for good reason, that they didn't want politics to interfere with interest rate policy. And so my suspicion is, and it looks likely, that interest rates are going to go up by the highest rate we've seen, and that's by 0.5 of half of 1%. And that's a big rise. And with that on the horizon, if you have any chance of fixing your rates to protect yourself against it, then it might be the ideal time to do so. We've been saying this for some months for those of you that are regular viewers, so it won't be news to those of you that are regular. And hopefully you took heed and you've already done it. But if you're in a situation where you've just come up for renewal, something like that, it could be a good idea to fix your rate. Do bear in mind, though, that if you do that, it can have penalties if you then want to sell or move. And in the not too distant future, normally the penalty, what they call the early repayment charge, comes for the period of the fix you choose. So, for instance, if you're not moving for 2 years, choose a 2-year fix. If you're not moving for 5 years, you could choose a 5-year fix. The problem is the rates go up the longer you fix for. So worth having a look at that. Also, if you're a landlord, you may need to protect yourself. I know it's not nice to put up tenants' rents on the one hand. On the other hand, rents are rocketing, and landlords have to protect their own positions when their mortgages are becoming less affordable, and therefore they're squeezed. And so it could be a time to look at rent reviews as well. What we tend to do is look at where rents are and where our tenants are. And most of our tenants are absolutely lovely people. They're our friends, and the last thing we want to do is cause them more pain in terms of rises in rents. On the other hand, our landlords are our clients, and we need to protect them against these vicious rises that are around. So therefore, we do have to look at rent reviews. And there's a way to do it. And in my view, the way to do it is with discretion and subtlety, and to let tenants know that it's not personal. If you're negotiating with your tenants, it's a really good idea to have a discussion with them way in advance of any rise in the rent. What we tend to do is look at what rents are now, look at what they're currently paying, and try and meet somewhere in the middle, rather than try and push to the nth degree. If you try and push to the full open market level, it's likely your tenants will move, A, because they're shocked, and B, because they can, because you've put the rent up to the full level. Why would you do that if you've got fantastic tenants, which most of our tenants, by the way, are? And so, that's the last thing you want. So what we look to do is try and bridge that gap a little bit to keep both sides happy. Never an easy bridge to tread, but one of the ways you can do that if you're a landlord is to make sure that you approach your tenants early. Have a discussion. Don't just whack a notice through the post and expect a good reaction from your tenants. Have a chat with them. Say, look, I'm struggling. Things are going up for me too. I know it's probably hard for you too. And then look at their circumstances. Consider those too. For some people, it will be a bridge too far. And for some people, you might think, actually, it's the wrong time for them to be paying anymore. I'm going to leave rents where they are. And that's kind of generous of you. But on the other hand, you might feel like you've got to protect your own family and your own financial position. And that's the seesaw that you've got to look at. So have those discussions. I know they're hard, but you need to hit them head on, have a hard discussion with your tenant and say, look, this is where I'm at, where are you at? And then make a decision. And then, it may be that you need another call, another chat to say, look, I'm sorry, but I do have to put these rates up. You will be receiving a notification in the post, and then use Section 13 notice in order to increase your rent. That's what we tend to do. Why do we use Section 13 instead of using a new agreement quite often? I'll tell you, because if you increase the rent of a tenant and they don't sign the new agreement, then there's always room for ambiguity. If you've served a Section 13 notice, then there's no question that the rent is due when the notice says it is due, provided it's been served within the correct time frame and in the correct manner. So therefore, we tend to serve a Section 13 notice and tell tenants, look, that notice is coming. It tends to be way in advance of when the rent is increasing so that they've got good notice. That's important too. Don't forget to remind them to change their standing orders as well. So I hope that's helpful to all you landlords out there, because, as I say, interest rate rises are coming. And if you're not a landlord and you're thinking of selling, the market's still very busy. It's strong. We have lots of interest, particularly from owner-occupiers. Bank of Mum and Dad is closing down, I read today. That's an interesting one. And it seems that the squeeze is hitting everybody. So whereas BOMAD, what we call BOMAD, the Bank of Mum and Dad, which often these days is actually the bank of Granny and Granddad. Does that make it BOGAD? I don't know. But often now that's not as wealthy as it was, and therefore there's not as much cash available for parents to push onto their children as much as they would like to. So it's tough out there for everybody. It's going to get tougher by the looks of things. There's going to be a squeeze coming. And what will that mean for the property market? Well, I've said many times, it means that supply will reduce. And in reducing that supply, so what's available becomes sought after and competed for. And that's why we're seeing a balance in favor of sellers still, not in favor of buyers, which seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, given that everything else in the country seems to be going down, including the stock market and everything else, which is why, by the way, property is such a fantastic long-term investment, because it does have that continuity and that ability to go with inflation as opposed to get left behind as many other investment types do. Again, not financial advice. We do have to say that every time we talk about money. So apart from that, busy day today on valuations, and tomorrow, having just come back from holiday, I'm raring to go, keen to get out there and start talking to people about their plans, aspirations and dreams, and hope that we can help get them along to the next journey in their lives. So that's it for today. Hope you're well. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And if you have, please do share and like. I'm always grateful for that. And it keeps me encouraged to do the next one. You know I'm here every day anyway. It's Ken at 10 for a reason. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Stay safe and well. Look after yourself. And if you can, your family and friends. Ciao.